Hello and welcome to part 2 of the removal and installation of the timing chain kit on a 3.5 Nissan motor. This is a 05 Altima, of course, but we're going to go ahead and remove the valve covers, intake manifold, the rear valve covers to allow us access to the camshafts to lock them in place, to access the tensioners because you got to get it from the valve cover side, and to put cylinder number 1 to top dead center, so we can go ahead and get this in the proper timing area before removal of the timing chain components. So let's get started. All right, on this 3.5 V6 Nissan engine, we're gonna remove the valve covers, and to access the back valve cover, we have to pull this intake manifold. And to start the process, you wanna go ahead and first disconnect your battery. And then we're going to go ahead and start with the air cleaner assembly. Remove any electrical connectors. Remove the ignition coils. The variable valve solenoid. This canister. And any other electrical connectors that are around it. So I went ahead and started. And I've already pulled the battery hookup. I pulled these 3 10mm screws out from the coils, and all they do is pop right out. Next, I just come around and snap the battery or the air filter cover and any electrical connectors or hoses that might be hooked up to this. You want to go ahead and remove them. So I'm going to hit this right here, take this clip off, and remove this air cleaner. Okay, with the air cleaner pulled out of the way, of course I had the mass air flow sensor hookup, had this little bitty connector, got to use this tool to remove it off of there. You have the throttle position connector, just quickly pull it and separate it. Gonna have to do the same right here with this tool. Pop them off just like that. That's easier, but I'll have to touch him on these little ports right here. This port goes into the intake port, so we're not gonna touch him. But this guy, he's part of the evap system. We have to remove him. Take a pair of needles, pull them out like so. Set them off to the side. This other line, this is the fuel rail. We're not going to go ahead and mess with the fuel rail. We are primarily just taking off the top portion of this intake to access the valve cover in the back side. So we're going to have to pull him off. Of course, that's 12mm. Ball right there. So it's just better if you have a cordless drill. And just start removing them. You don't have to completely disconnect them. If you want to, you can. I just lean them off to the side. And go ahead and put the bolt back in the hole so you know where it's at, and then you can remove all the other bolts that wrap around the upper part of the intake. With this bolt that's right there, to access him, you need to loosen up this bolt right here. But that's all you really have to do is loosen him, because then you can slide him out of the way and you have full clearance right there to get to him. That's the last one. Pull those all out. And then that right here. Once you have those, you want to work around it. You will have to remove this line right here, that line right there that's in the back of the intake. But what we're going to do is we're going to break this loose, and we'll be able to access those lines a lot easier. You could do this one from right here, but that one back there, he's a little more trickier. But if we break them loose, we should be able to get to them pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and work on removing this electrical connector and our EGR valve tube right here. These nuts have to come out. It looks like 12mm as well. This electrical connector, break him loose right here and pull him off. Lean him off to the side. So I'm gonna work on that and then see what we gotta do to break this loose. All right, I went ahead and removed this electrical connector from right here. I'm gonna set him off to the side. That was a 10mm bolt. Then I pulled the 12mm bolts that goes to this EGR tube that mounts on the side of the intake. I just set the bolts off to the side. And then I went to look down here and there's a tube mounted to the intake right here. I went to notice it's starting to move. That's the intake now loose. And you wanna slowly work around here. Make sure that when you go to pull it off, that there's nothing holding it on. Because I know we got the tubes back here. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the tubes out because I see them where they're at. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that tube and this tube. Then if I see any other tubes, I'll make sure I get those as well. But you wanna slowly work on it so you don't break anything when you gotta remove this one to access the rear valve cover on this vehicle. This one's got a real bad valve cover leaking in the back. It's got oil all on the back side. So I see it was that valve cover. It was this one, it'd be a lot easier, but it's the back one, so we're gonna knock them both out. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue by removing this, see what we got. All right, this EGR tube that sits right here, this needs to be removed because that stud right there is not allowing me to lift and pull back. So I went ahead and pulled the two 12mm bolts, slid them out, took the EGR tube out of there. I set it right here on the ground. This is it. This is what you would pull out without damaging the wire. Try not to damage it. And there's your 2 bolts. And furthermore, there's a hose back here. You can see it in my hand. That's actually mounted on the back side of this intake. So that's a little hidden one. You know, went ahead and I was able to remove the hose here and the hose here. And with that in mind, this tube, this whole intake should come out. Nope, there's still something else holding it. Something on the back side. So I'm gonna go ahead and find what's holding it. And I'll be right back. Alright, so the reason why this intake wasn't coming out was due to the fact that this little bracket right here actually mounts on the back side of this intake. Right there, you can see the little studs, and that's what is holding the intake manifold to the top side of the motor. So with those 2 bolts removed, I was able to pull it, lift it straight out, place on the ground. Now that exposes the top side of the engine where I can now access all the bolts all the way around the valve cover. You will have to pull any clips or anything that's mounted to the intake using that special tool or a pair of needle nose. Just squeeze those little clips and it should push right through. You gotta pull the ignition coil packs off. That's 10mm screws holding it. Then they'll pump right out. And then these screws, they look like 10mm as well. Yeah, they are 10mm screws. So we're gonna go ahead and remove all the screws, remove the remaining ignition coils, and we should be able to remove the valve cover. And that I expose the valve cover gaskets. Remove all the bolts from the valve cover on the front side. The bolts look like this. Little 10mm heads. All the way around, it exposes the camshafts and the valve cover surface. This whole surface needs to be ensured that you clean. Any silicone that might get left behind, you gotta clean it. So like this right here, that has to get cleaned off all the way around. The back side, same thing, but the valve cover is still on there. So on this one, you got a little lip right here. You would just lift up on it, and not too hard because it's made of plastic. You'll just gently lift until it breaks loose, like so. And then you'll just slowly pull it out of there. And that'll expose the back side. And again, see that silicone right there? Before we go placing the new valve cover gasket, you gotta ensure you clean the whole surface. The old valve cover gasket is right there. We're gonna have to remove that with a pick. And then we'll go ahead and install a fresh gasket on this cover and the other cover and do the reinstall process. All right, now that we officially have the intake, valve covers removed, and the timing cover removed, we can now start the full process of the removal of the timing chain, the guides, the tensioners, secondary tensioners, the secondary chains, sprockets. But before we go ahead and start that, we got to put this motor in a certain time sequence. So this sprocket over here needs to, or this needs to be at 2 o'clock. This one over here needs to be at 10 o'clock. And the crank, the wood roof key on there, there is a line on the oil pump. They must match. So I'm going to go ahead and clock the timing chain exactly at 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and the wood roof key match the line. Then it's time to go ahead and start the removal process of this primary chain. So I'm going to go ahead and clock it. Then we're going to go ahead and start on the removal of the guides, the tensioners, another guide right here, to go ahead and further access the next part of this removal process. So let's start. Those are 10mm bolts. That removes the upper guide. And the next one you want to do is the one. These right here are 12mm. And then last but not least is this guide right here, the tensioner. That is a 10mm that holds those 2 bolts on the tensioner. And then of course there is a Allen at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and remove those 2 10s right there, and the Allen bolt that's right here. Pull that out, and then I'll get this chain removed. All right, with the remaining tensioner and guide removed, I went ahead and pulled the chain. All right, with the main timing chain now removed, guides, we can now go ahead and start the process of taking off the variable valve solenoids on both sides. With the sequence, start from the middle and work yourself out on both sides. So get one right here and one right there. There's a gasket underneath it. Go ahead and discard it, as we're not going to reuse it. Now go ahead and start the removal. All right, with the electrical connector removed from the solenoid, I went ahead and removed that side as well. It's right here. We can go ahead and start the removal of these bolts. They're 10mm, of course. pull your solenoid. One, other. Then the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is you want to go ahead and loosen these bolts up. These are 17 millimeter on both sides. And then you're going to go ahead and pull the bolt out. Then after you do that, you're going to compress this tensioner and push it down. And see that little hole? You're going to put a paper clip in there. When you push this down, see that line right there in that shaft of that tensioner? That's going to lock it. When you push it down, that line's going to be inside and align itself with the hole, and the paper clip is going to lock it down. That's going to allow easy removal of this timing chain. So let's go ahead and start that. The next process was to go ahead and relieve the tension off this chain. And of course you can see this paper clip pushed in this hole and it's actually pressed in. Therefore this chain is actually loose now, as you can see. This side was pretty easy because you just have to push a little weight right here and it goes right in. But on the back side, it's actually kind of difficult to get inside here. So what I did was put this bolt, this is a motor mount bolt, and I used a long primer like so, and I reached up under there and I pushed on it. And my left hand found the hole that I actually put the paper clip in, and I actually was able to stick it in the hole. So it was kind of difficult trying to do it up underneath the car as well. So I just used this technique and it worked out pretty quickly, like less than a minute. So just wanted to share that right there. All right, I went ahead and I broke loose the bolts here using a wrench from the camshaft side. And then I used the air ratchet to remove the bolts. These are the two bolts out of the camshafts. And with that out of the way, this right here should come right off. Like so. All right, with the gears and the chains removed, gears and chains removed on this side, the solenoids removed, the next process is to remove this bolt, this one, and this one. And that will gain access to removing these caps that houses this tensioner. Same with this side, except the back side, there's only 3 on this side. And then after you get the bolts on the inner side, the top side you have multiple bolts as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. And on the back side, 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 bolts as well. Those are all 10 millimeter. So we're going to remove all those bolts, the 3 bolts in here, 4 here, and the 4 up there. And that should allow these caps to be removed. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, with the caps removed, notice the caps are gone. We're going to go ahead and remove the tensioners, and they're held on by these little Allen bolts. So this is what it looks like. And as you can see, the plastic is brittle over time. That's age and wear, breaks down. But I like to keep everything organized, and this actually helps with the installment as well. These were the gears removed. Keep all the chains, the bolts. The other tensioner is still on there. I'll go ahead and remove that one. Here's the 2 caps and then 2 solenoids. The last remaining tensioner is right here. I'm going to go ahead and remove that one with the 2 remaining bolts. And we've got the surfaces all prepped. You want to go ahead and make sure that all your connecting surfaces was clean. No silicone all the way around these 3 holes right here, this one right here where this bolt is at, here, very bottom where the pan is, or the lower portion of the block to the crank. Back here, you want to ensure that this area is cleaned as well. This is where the cap goes. And the one in the back side back here. Once you have all that completed, our next step is to go ahead and start the installation. We'll put the tensioners, both the tensioners, in which you're going to reuse the bolts that came out of your old one. Of course, compare your old one as your new one. And there's a pin, and that pin is to remain in that position until the chain and sprockets are bolted on and tight. So we're going to go ahead and install these. Located on this bank. What I do is I just go ahead and hand tighten them. But these tensioners are to be torqued 75 inch-pounds. So let's go ahead and install both of them, torque them down, and then get them prepped and ready for the caps. Went ahead and got the tensioners installed, both in the front and the rear. The next step we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the caps on both sides. Of course, right here, guys, you want to make sure that this little O-ring is sitting in its position, that seal. And when placing silicone on here, there's a special area that you must place silicone. So your sealing points are actually along that line right there and that line that runs across there. Do not overlap silicone into any other position but those areas. That's the same follows on the other side. This line right here and this line that runs across from all the way from end to end. You want to place silicone there, and then on the inside you got a smooth surface. This is the surface that's actually going to press against the timing cover, but from the valve cover side. And of course the same thing follows with the inside. If you notice, there is a line that runs across the whole inside, all the way around. You want to ensure you get silicone in all the spots. Missed a little bit of silicone, but you want to ensure you get silicone in all them spots. And this little special hole right there, do not get silicone in that hole. That hole meshes up with this seal. And if you clog it, you'll cause a malfunction. That's very important that you don't clog no oil into that hole right there. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and lightly silicone it, and we'll place it on there. Then of course, when we go to tighten it down, those are 10 foot-pounds on the inside plate, and then the bolts that are on the top side of the cap, which are these 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to torque them down from outside in, and it's in 3 specs. You're going to go 17 inch-pounds the first run, 52 inch-pounds the second run, then 85 inch-pounds the last run. And that will make it completely torqued down and bolted down. So I'm going to go ahead and knock that out. The camshaft caps, if you notice the silicone, how I laced it within those lines, did the same thing on this side. I went ahead and silicone the inside as well, all the way around, and I try to stay away from this hole as much as I can. And all I did was use this high temp with a small hole at the tip of it to lace that silicone. And when placing it in there, you want to be very gentle when placing it into its rightful spot. So I'm going to go ahead and install this, then we'll start the torquing procedure on it. Got the rear cap ready to go on. And of course did the same thing, put silicone right in the little grooves. Same with this side. And also the grooves that are on the timing cover, the back side of the timing cover, you want to go ahead and trace silicone all throughout the groove all the way to the other side. And also during the cleaning process, I did, however, remove all of the grease and dirt and contaminants within this area. So I went ahead and just dabbed it with a little deal of engine grease. This is actually engine lube, so it doesn't have a dry start when it fires up. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the other cap on here and then torque and tighten it down as well. All right, with the camshaft caps bolted down, same go with the rear one. As you can see, you can clearly see the silicone that runs across. That gives it a good seal. You want to check the little bitty weep hole on the front side. Get this hose out of the way. Right here, that there is no silicone attached to that paper clip. That tells you no silicone got in the way of the passage, this oil passage right here. It's clean and clear. It's the same thing you want to do on the back side. You want to ensure that there's no oil that comes out of that one as well. So shove a paper clip in there, and it's clean. A little bit oil stain, but no silicone. So it's good and clear, good and clear. Next step we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start installing the top chains and sprockets. So the first one we're going to do is the right side, which is the right bank, and that side uses the circles. So I have this thing turned upside down, and right on top you can see a circle. If you can see the circle and an oval. And then on the new sprocket, one side has circles and the other side has ovals. So this one, when this is done, it actually gets flipped around like so. We're going to use the circles on this one, and you have two orange marks on the chain, and this side has one single mark. So what we're going to do is this side is the circles, which is the right bank. We're going to stick that on there like so, and then this side is going to match up with the circle here, which is right here. So I'm going to turn this thing all the way around like that, and it's kind of complicated. This actually has to go on. You have to follow this orange deal right here, and you're going to flip it around this way. So that orange little guy needs to be here, but on the other side of this chain, it's not orange. And this faces forward. This faces forward. Circle, two circles. This is the right-hand bank. Now I have, notice the circle right there. On the back side, you can see the orange. See the orange deal on a chain? That's a circle mark, and it's upside down. There's the oval, no markings. But if I flip it around, it's on the circles on this side. Now she's ready to tighten down, and this is the left-hand bank. So I'm going to go ahead and pop it on there, and then we'll go ahead and start the torquing. Okay, got the right bank timing chain on. When you go to install it, you want to ensure that the tensioner doesn't get hit and the chain gets voided around it. It's on the bottom side. But the right bank, of course, is the one with the dot. And you can see clearly right here, the little red gash on the chain, the dot matches up. And then on the other side, it's in a very hard area to actually see it. And so what I do is I use a camera, and you can see right there, there's one of the little dots, and then of course the other one. Those dots are facing forward on that other sprocket, and this is on the right bank. So got two dots and the one dot right there, and we're going to go ahead and work on the left bank, and the left bank is the ovals. So we're going to go ahead and do the ovals now. All right, now that the right bank is installed, we're now going to do the left bank, and the sprocket and chain, new chain, new sprocket. On the right side we use the circles, so the left side we're going to use the ovals. Of course, my chain is already installed on the small sprocket where the two oval marks are. And to see the oval on this little guy, flip him around, you'll find the oval mark. He's right there. So that orange chain needs to be installed there, but flipped around, just like we did with the circle. So flip him around, and he should go on something like this. Right there. See that orange mark? And you can see the oval up underneath there, but flip them back around. Notice on this side, there's no orange because they only label that one chain link orange. So now you can flip them around, and the other ovals are right there. So I'm going to go ahead and install this on the left bank, and I'll show you the finished touch. I went ahead and got the left side in, and the orange marks. Of course, you got the two oval marks right here. This line right here still remains at 2 o'clock. And then you have the orange mark right here, and the marking is right next to it. So this is all aligned with both of them now in place. We're going to go ahead and torque the bolt in the center while utilizing a wrench to hold the camshafts in place. You're going to torque these down to 75 foot-pounds on all four. So I'm going to go ahead and knock that out. Then we're going to move on to the installation of the lower crankshaft sprocket. All you do is pull that one out, install the new one, and then we're going to go ahead and put the chain on. So I'm going to go ahead and torque these, and we'll start with the chain. Also, now that these are torqued down, this little pin right here, go ahead and pull them, and that'll set the tensioner ready in place. Okay, with these torqued down, the pins pulled from the tensioner, got tension on them. It's time to go ahead and pop the chain on. And of course, with the chain, they're marked. See that little guy right there? You have another one right here, and then you have a gold color one marked right here, along with the guides and the tensioner for this. The top, of course, it's pretty much common sense, kind of figure out where things kind of go. But on this little guy, you have the little deals you aligned it with at the beginning. Remember, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and a Woodruff key on the oil pump mark. So we're going to realign the chain wherever there's a marking here. Same thing goes with the other side. So with this one, he's right there. So this gear will have to be moved, or this one, to align that one in place, and then pop pop the one on the bottom on. So I'm going to go ahead and pop them in, realign it, and then we'll go ahead and put all the guides in. Okay, just completed installing the large timing chain, but I want to show you guys something for me to get it in here. Granted, we know this is supposed to be at 2 o'clock and this is at 10 o'clock. These two wrenches need to be pulled inwards for them to actually kiss on this little dot, and the same thing goes over here, that little dot. And for me to doing that, I went ahead and put a ratchet strap and I pulled them together, evenly pulling them together until the lines matched up on both of these. Once they aligned up, I was able to put the chain around the water pump and place it directly on the marking on the crankshaft sprocket, as you can see right there. The Woodruff key still shows to be at the notch on the oil pump. And once I was able to put the chain on, I then went ahead and installed the guide here. Then I came back to this side and I installed this guide, tightened up the bolt. Of course, that bolt is 12 foot-pounds. And then the tensioner, went ahead and installed the tensioner. Those two 10mm bolts, 75 inch-pounds. And the last remaining guide, because there was tension between these, I didn't want to touch this until last. I pushed it down, it then put slack on this, and I put the bolts in, and I went ahead and torqued these down to 75 inch-pounds. So these are 10mm bolts as well. So with all that being said, the last deal is to go ahead and pull this little pin, and now there's tension on the chain. So the timing chain has been completed. Everything is torqued down the spec. What I always do is I always double check my work, making sure the lines stayed where they needed to be. And then once you're done there, it's time to move on to the next portion of the job. Timing set all fully installed. What I would do is I'd go ahead and stick the bolt in the crank on the bottom and rotate this motor over and over and over, making sure it turns freely. A valve doesn't hit a piston because this is an interference engine. I keep the spark plugs out of the head so it'll rotate freely. And once I'm done checking that, check the surface around again, making sure it's clean and clear, because now it's time to go ahead and install the timing cover. And of course, the timing cover, go ahead and get a timing cover kit. It usually comes with the new seals for these little slots right here, in which I didn't break open. So I'm going to install the little O-rings that they give me because there's no leak. But the seal right here, I'm replacing. You got a seal that wraps up underneath here, and that kit comes with a tube. So you can go ahead and silicone the whole thing once more, because that's the way it was factory when I went ahead and busted it open. It's siliconed. So I'm going to go ahead and silicone it. But before I do that, the seal right here, it's actually a pretty easy seal to replace. Your old seal is right here. It had a little wet around it. But what I do is I turn this thing around and I just hit it with a flat tip screwdriver right here until it pops out. I will go ahead and clean the surface on the inside and just find a socket that's the same size and just tap it in. And once it's smooth all the way around, you're secured in the correct area. So that seal is pretty easy to replace. But I'm gonna go ahead and silicone this and then prep that, double checking, making sure that the surface is clear, and then I'm gonna slide it in and bolt it up. I went ahead and placed all the 10mm bolts back in their proper position. From the diagram that I drew on that piece of paper, I put it in order. Of course, on this vehicle, it's actually pretty simple. They all pretty much the same bolts except the 4 bottom bolts. The rest of them are 10s. All 4 bottom ones are 12mm. It's all the way at the bottom. You have the two coming up from the oil pan and the two on a lower intake cover. Once you go ahead and tighten them down, all these bolts on the outside, they're to be torqued down to 9 foot-pounds, and the bolts at the very bottom, they're 21 foot-pounds. So the one on the left and the right and from underneath it. Of course, you got to go in a certain sequence, jumping back and forth, tightening it down. You can find schematics all over the internet. Right, so with the surface clean, inspected, no debris whatsoever, went ahead and got the valve cover, and I installed the new gasket. But this gasket's a little loose, and when I flipped it around, it started sliding out. So what I did is I just hit in little spots with a little bit of silicone. And with that silicone, it actually keeps it in place, and it's not going to allow it to drop like so, because it would just drop. And with that little silicone, it's now helping it out, and it's not going to allow it to fall. So we're going to go ahead and drop it in here. All right, went ahead and had to work it up underneath all these wires, but got it in its position. What we're going to go ahead and do, go ahead and just drop all the bolts all the way around it. And I use a coreless drill, and I set it really low, because what we got to do is we got to go ahead and make 2 passes when tightening this valve cover down. The first pass is going to be 20 inch-pounds. And that guy right there, we're going to go 20 inch-pounds. And then the final pass is going to be 75 inch-pounds. Of course, you got to go in a certain order as well. So you got to, from up here, got to hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and number 10 is all the way over here. So you tighten that down in that sequence in 2 passes. First pass 20 inch-pounds, second pass 75 inch-pounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten the valve cover down. Got the front valve cover, she's torqued down. These are 10mm bolts. We're gonna do the same on the back side, ensuring that the surface is clean, and also just double check, make a quick pass, make sure no tools or anything fell inside the camshaft area, no loose bolts or nuts or anything. And after you inspect it, you go ahead and drop your valve cover. All right, valve cover is now in place. You'll make sure, I mean, if you don't use silicone, it's a possibility that the gasket can pop out. So I just put little dabs of silicone, just enough to hold it in place. And once you drop it in, it should fit like a glove. But of course, the same concept goes with the back side, with torquing it down. You're gonna follow. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is over here, and then 10. First pass 20 inch-pounds, second pass 75 inch-pounds. I'm gonna go ahead and torque my bolts down. All right, with the valve cover now torqued down, along with the timing cover, I just wanted to share with you, besides this timing kit that I installed on this Nissan 3.5 liter from coils, that's your part number, I went ahead and took the liberty and replaced this water pump. The water pump wasn't leaking, though I highly recommend replacing it, being that it was an actual large task to replacing this timing chain and these components. And with this removed, that gave me ample access to replacing this 5-minute part after all this was removed. So if you go ahead and knock this chain setup, I would jump in there, knock this out, and jump out. Just a little note, And just wanted to share with you with the timing chain kit officially installed. This concludes part 2 of 3 in the timing chain replacement on this Nissan 3.5 liter engine. If you like my video and would like to follow, please hit the subscribe button below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and thanks for watching.